My big fear is that I'm gonna prepare for the wrong guest and I'm gonna open the door and someone I have not prepared for is gonna be staring me in the face.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and like Tom BILYEU'S says,
the only wrong move in life ever is standing still. Indecision will kill you. Mistakes will not.
so let's help you break free from indecision with Tom BILYEU and my take on his top 10 rules for success.
I can't believe that we're meeting in person for the first time today. Need motivation? Watch a top 10 with Believe Nation.
Okay, let's kick it off with rule number 1. Seek knowledge.
As Nelson Mandela said, education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world. Wherever you are right now listening to this, I want you to burn that into your mind. The most powerful weapon that you're going to have at your disposal isn't a gun, it isn't a sword, it isn't a bomb. The most powerful weapon you will ever have at your disposal, if you really want to make change, is knowledge. It doesn't mean going to school. It can be school, it can be books, it can be a mentor, it can be somebody else's failure, it can be your own failure. But whatever it is, to always be learning, to be learning something today, knowing that that's an investment. And as Robert Louis Stevenson said, don't judge each day by the harvest you reap, but rather by the seeds you plant. And that's what knowledge is. That's what the learning process is you're learning something today that you may not even understand how it's going to be valuable. But one day, that piece of knowledge is going to come to your aid. One day, that thing that you learned is going to be something that you're going to lean on. One day, that thing that you've worked your ass off to understand better than anybody else in the world, it's going to help you change the world. But you have to be doing it now. You have to be learning with an obsession. You have to understand that ideas in equal ideas out, and that you have to chase that knowledge down, that it is a relentless pursuit, and that like you would build an armada, like you would create a stockpile of weapons, you must create a stockpile of knowledge. You must learn and learn and learn, and you must hold yourself accountable every day to planting those seeds, to getting better, to learning more, to understanding things more broadly. When you do that, there will be nothing that won't be unlocked to you. That's what I want you guys to understand. It doesn't matter where you are now. It doesn't matter where you started, your circumstances, the money, the people that you know. None of it matters. What matters is how much are you willing to learn? How good are you willing to get? How much knowledge are you willing to soak in? Because that will become your weapon. That will be how you rise up, and that will be the thing that will protect you when you need it most.
Rule number 2, don't stand still.
What tools can I use to help shut off my brain from the millions of ideas when I've chosen one to give all my energy and focus to? I left my job as VP of a major food company after 10 years a year ago to start my own business, and I struggle with being my own boss now that I only have myself to hold myself accountable. But this business is my livelihood and my future and my passion project. All right, I love this, man. I can relate to this heavily. All right, I've always said that the thing that sobers up entrepreneurs faster than anything is to have your house on the line. When you've got a wife, kids, just rent to make, whatever, even if you're a solo flyer, but you know you've got to eat, all of a sudden you become real sober about either something is working or it is not. And when it is not working, man, you better make a change and make a change ASAP. There's some real clarity to that. Now, I would say that you want, and I can predict the kickback I'm going to get on this, but this is the truth. And because I live it every day, as 50 Cent said, I came in the game humble. Can't nobody tell me now. You want to tie your identity to your success. It's dangerous because, oh my God, if you end up failing, you're going to have to backtrack real fast and get your identity back out of that. But we're going to save that for another class. For now, I'm going to tell you, hey, the fact that it's all riding on the line, the fact that you said you were going to do this, and now, baby, it's put up or shut up. Let that ride on you. Now, be very careful. Don't let it create so much pressure that you become paralyzed, because that does not serve you. We do and believe that which moves us towards our goals. So we want the pressure, but not so much that it causes us to crack, not so much that it slows us down or, puts us in this death spiral, right? You never allow yourself to say the words, I'm out of moves. You're never out of moves. You're never out of options, right? There is always something else that you can do. Number one rule of being an entrepreneur, avoid a mortality event. The name of the game is to stay in business long enough to figure it out. It is very okay to not know what you're doing right now. It is very much not okay to stand still. The only wrong move in life ever is standing still. Indecision will kill you. Mistakes will not. Now we can get into the idea of dent the car, don't total the car, because of course, yes, you could make a fatal mistake. But those are usually pretty easy to spot. If you ask yourself, hey, if this fails, do I go out of business? If the answer is yes, don't even attempt it. Move on to something where the answer is no. Far better to take incremental steps towards your goal, to stay in the game long enough to figure out exactly what direction you want to be taking those steps in, than to do one sort of big, put it all on the roulette wheel and bet it all on black, okay? That we do not want to do. Stay in the game, tie your identity to that success, be all in. While I don't encourage people to burn the ships of the shore, I actually encourage people, keep your day job. You've already burned your ships of the shore, so you need to be honest that behind you is the flaming wreckage of your previous life. Now, probably good to hold a little nugget in your head reminding you that you can always get back to that because you have the skills and skills have utility. But for now, we're going to close the door on that. That's going to be the break glass in case of emergency sort of notion. For now, we want to make sure that since we left our previous job, it's do or die. So let's do. Now, personally, I respond well to that. I love that. I love having things right on it. But I'm very careful not to let that overwhelm me. So the whole notion of overwhelm is outside the scope of this question, but I think you're in a powerful position. But you have to embrace the do or die mentality. So get in there, get after it.
Rule number 3, start with the goal.
As Friedrich Nietzsche said, many are stubborn in pursuit of the path they have chosen, few in pursuit of the goal. And that's one of the things that really trips people up. At the end of the day, a path is an option. It's one of the ways forward, but it's the thing that you're doing right now today. So people get really focused on that. They make their happiness built around that. They think about that as the thing. But as the old saying goes, don't confuse the finger with the moon that it's pointing at. That's where you've got to be really careful. At the end of the day, the goal is the thing that you're trying to achieve. The goal is what you're trying to get. The path is irrelevant. The path is really your best guess. It's the thing you think is going to work. But if you become myopically focused on that, if you think that the path really is the end thing, if you think the finger actually is the moon, then you miss the objective to which you're fighting for. Then you're not going to have the energy to keep pushing when things get really hard because you're going to have mistaken the way of getting there with the destination itself. And I think that people a lot of times throw hate on having a destination, on building towards some big goal, of having some grand thing that they're chasing. But as Einstein said, if you want to live a happy life, tie it to a goal, not to people, not to things. And the reason that he said that, people and things, they change. You've got no control over them. At the end of the day, the only thing that you really control is yourself. At the end of the day, the only thing that you can hope for is to be going after something that has meaning, something that has purpose, something that really gives you a reason for being, that directs your actions, that becomes the filter by which you judge everything, that really becomes the center, the gravitational center of your own universe. But it's the goal, not the path. So what is it that you really want? You have to identify that. To me, everything in life starts with a goal and then work your way backwards. Don't allow yourself to get caught up in other people and putting your happiness in somebody else and finding purpose in something else and trying to obtain things. Have it be something that you're trying to accomplish. Have it be something that you're trying to become. Once you're on the path to becoming, then you can find real happiness.
Rule number 4, live in the moment.
What steps did you take to separate business growth from personal growth? I often find myself confused on which one to grow, but I do know that if you don't grow, your business won't grow either. Any tips? So for me, they're inextricably connected. And my advice to anybody, whether you're a linchpin employee or whether you're an entrepreneur, there should not be any difference between yourself as a person and what you're doing as a job. You spend 50% of your waking hours at your job. 50% of your waking hours are at your job. So, and that's assuming, I think I did the math at like a 40 or 50 hour work week. So if you work as much as I do, where it's like 90 hours, sometimes more, then it's like, okay, at some point, like if there is a difference between who you are as a person, the things you want to learn and grow and get better at, and what you're spending all that time on, I don't think you're going to look back too favorably on your life. And quite frankly, I don't think you're going to enjoy it in the moment, because I'm not a legacy guy. I don't think about, like, I am not at all worried about what I'm going to think on my deathbed, because hopefully my deathbed isn't a very long endeavor. So I would rather live my life the way that I'm enjoying it right now today. Like, I'll just tell you, I'm going to regret on my deathbed. I will for sure regret not having kids. 100%. Like, that is so patently obvious to me. And when people ask, like, aren't you worried you're going to regret it? Not even a little bit, because I would regret having kids today. And today, hopefully, is a lot longer, because you got a whole lot of todays than your deathbed. So to me, optimize for what makes you feel the most alive every day in the struggle, because the struggle is guaranteed. So that's where I like to spend my time, thinking about that, thinking about the things that are making me the person that I want to become right now in the moment. If I'm fighting with something at work, that I'm still having to learn the skills that I would want to learn even if I wasn't at work. And so, yeah, that's it. And I think that you can find that whether you're a linchpin employee or whether you're an entrepreneur. You just have to select the company that you work for or the company that you create very, very, very carefully.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there. Rule number 5, face adversity.
As Michelangelo said, if people knew how hard I worked to achieve my mastery, it wouldn't seem so wonderful after all. And that's the thing about getting great. That's the thing about being an artist of such caliber that you're remembered for hundreds of years after your death. It is back-breaking work. It is a blinding amount of effort. It isn't about natural talent. That myth that some people are born with something that we celebrate so much is just that, a myth. You're born a lump of flesh. You can't hold your own head up. You may have predispositions, but that is a long way from actually crafting your ability until the point where it looks like magic. And that's the beauty of artistry, isn't it? That it's so unbelievable that you're more willing to believe that it was God-given, that they were anointed with it, than that they just worked their ass off. But the truth is, every one of the greats, no matter how much natural talent they were born with, they're remembered because they worked. They are remembered because they did so much work. Because in that work is hardship. In that work is difficulty. In that work is unbearable adversity. But it's in that adversity that the magic happens. And as Victor Hugo said, adversity makes men. Prosperity makes monsters. So I know right now you wish you'd been born with some talent. You wish that all those dreams that you had, they were yours for the taking, that you didn't have to put blood, sweat, and tears into it, that somebody would hand you at least something in the beginning, that they would give you some start, some spark. That's where the monster's created. If you really want to get hard, if you really want to get tough, if you want to get great, if you want to be untouchable because no one can bend or break your vision of yourself, then you have to suffer. That's the way of the world. And as Florence Nightingale said, I attribute my success to this: I never gave or took any excuse. And that's the secret. At the end of the day, if you know what you want, it's only a question of whether you're willing to pay the price to get there. So ask yourself, Are you willing to pay the price?
Rule number 6, understand people.
If you almost play a game with yourself and say, I want to see if I can change the energy of somebody who's being difficult. I want to see if I can stay compassionate, generous, kind, warm through all of this. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes it's really hard, especially if it's your kids or your parents or your spouse. Like, it can be hard. I get it. But as we try to be our best selves and present ourselves in a way that's going to get us what we want, which is a harmonious relationship, which is the ending of the difficulty. By looking at what we could do to change that situation, you will be shocked at how far that goes. Figuring out how to point out the scaffolding of a conversation is huge. Breaking things down into small pieces. Being generous in articulating their stance. Recognizing a collision of values and knowing, hey, if we can't agree on where we're trying to end up, if we can't agree on what the value is, this is going to be a fruitless conversation. And the sooner you recognize that's where you're at and that you need to actually talk about the value or just go your separate ways, the healthier all of your relationships are going to be. And then just lead with kindness and recognize that people that think differently, that's important. And we shouldn't want everybody to see the world exactly the way that we see it. And if we can come at things from that perspective of trying to understand before we try to be understood, woo-wee, you're going to find that a lot of that difficulty just goes by the wayside. And that's how I deal with difficult people.
Rule number 7, have faith.
As Helen Keller said, optimism is the faith that leads to achievement. Nothing can be done without hope and confidence. And that's the trick. It really is faith. It really is doing something even though you have nothing in the world telling you that it's real. It's something that you have to choose to believe in. It's something that is going to allow you to do incredible things simply because you believe that you can do them. But if you don't start with that optimistic belief, if you don't start by burning into yourself, by reinforcing over and over and over in your mind that things can and will work out, that your efforts are going to be rewarded, to believe to the core of your being that the harder you work, the more you're going to learn. The more you learn, the more you'll be able to do. The more you'll be able to do, the more you'll be able to manifest your dreams. But you have to start with that faith that that's real. Because it would be just as easy to look at the world and say that pessimism is the only thing that makes sense. It would be just as easy to look into the world and see only the negative things. But once you understand that you can choose to have faith that things are going to work, that you can believe in something long before you have the evidence for it, and you can believe in it because you know that's how the mind works, that we lead with belief. That's where humans generate their power. They don't generate it from seeing some evidence of something in the world. We generate our power by first believing that our efforts will be rewarded. You have to put that at the center of your being. And as Wayne Dyer said, be miserable or motivate yourself. Whatever has to be done is always your choice. So if you want to do something, recognize there's no obstacle holding you back other than what you choose to believe. And if you want to be miserable, it's going to be there for you. And if you want to be empowered, it's there for you. If you want strength, it is there for you. It's a decision. It's something that you decide to believe in, that you can get strong. And that ultimately is the ultimate strength, to believe that you can get better, to believe that you can become whatever you want to become. So choose optimism right now. Choose to let it fill you. Choose to feel it, to sit in that sensation that anything you set your mind to is possible. When you allow yourself to embody that, to believe it, no matter what anybody tells you, no matter how many people tell you that you're stupid, you're a failure, that you're never going to do anything, that you are going to believe in yourself. If you can do that, if you can choose that optimism, you can go anywhere because you realize everything you needed was in you all along. It was simply choosing to believe you could execute against it. So have that faith. Go out and do it.
Rule number 8, pursue honorable goals.
Working from home offers quite a bit of distractions. One I didn't think I'd face is bored eating during the workday. Where do you think bored eating stems from? How do you curb this habit? All right, bored eating is all about dopamine. So what happens is you start doing a task. That task is difficult. It has a high cognitive load, okay? And when you think about the brain is about 3 pounds, and yet it consumes about 20% of your calories. So it is a tiny percentage of your overall body weight, and yet calorically, it is wildly demanding. So thinking actually is hard. And so when you get into something and you're thinking about it and you hit that sort of either it's boring, it's difficult, it's forcing you to face your inadequacies, whatever. It's the antithesis of the dopamine reward that you would get if you just pick up your phone, or God willing, that you can go eat something. And eating is one, especially if you're wired like me, eating is one of the biggest dopamine rewards that you're going to get. It is truly a drug-like effect. If that's you, then you need to put in parameters around your eating. You need to remember that you have a goal, you're working towards something, and this is critically important to understand. Going back to construct your life, you should be pursuing a goal that matters to you. Okay, your goal should be exciting and honorable. Okay, exciting in that you're amped up about it. Even failing at that thing is fun. And I think that's one of the most important questions anybody could ask themselves. What could I do and love even if I were failing? Now, you're always going to prefer winning at something that you love over losing at something that you love, but there really are things in your life that are interesting enough to you. It doesn't have to be some deep passion, but they're interesting enough to you that as you pursue them, they give you more energy than they take. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't have overhead in your life. We all have it. It's a great concept from Jeff Bezos, that no matter how much you love your job, there's always going to be overhead. There's going to be some percentage of your job that you don't like. I never need to work again, and yet I'm running a company where 30% of my time, a full 30% of my time is shit I hate. I don't just dislike, I actively hate doing it. 30% of my time is stuff that's fine, it's important, it needs to be done, not necessarily thrilling. And then only 40% is stuff that I'm ecstatic about. But I'm so excited by what we're trying to build, and I'm so sustained by the 70% that's either fine, important, but needs to be done, maybe not the most thrilling, but fine, and the 40% that I absolutely love, that I'm more than happy to slay the dragons of the 30% of things that I hate and for whatever reason I'm unable to outsource to somebody else. So I've got this exciting goal. It's honorable. I'm trying to help other people is what I mean by that. So it doesn't just serve me, it serves others, which is a huge dopamine reward for a social animal. Okay, that's critically important. So when I have that impulse to stop doing the hard thing and to go get something to eat, and I have even found myself getting up out of my seat, I'm literally 3 steps towards the kitchen. I'm like, what am I doing? And I sit myself back down. So it is crazy how fast you can slip into autopilot, that there is some part of your brain that's telling you to pick up your phone and look at it, to check your email, to go get something to eat. I think everybody feels those distractions. Understanding that's your brain crying out for a little dopamine hit. You've probably trained yourself to do that either through frequent eating or through just training yourself to look at your phone constantly, which they are designed to take over that mechanism, to shorten people's attention span, to make you crave that next hit. And so we're living in this crazy world of digital distraction where we're trained to have this shorter and shorter attention span to crave that dopamine more and more. So now you're going to have to do things to unwind that. Rules around eating have been very helpful for me. So I eat 2 meals a day. That's it. Period. End of story. And I know when the day begins exactly what I'm going to be intaking. So my calories are always planned out, except for Saturday. Saturday, I go pretty hardcore. Sunday, I don't even worry about calories, but I limit the options. Like I don't eat things with sugar on Sunday, but I do on Saturday. So having rules that are extraordinarily strict. In fact, here's a great name for you guys to remember around strict rules. Bright lines. I don't remember who coined that phrase. I think it's brilliant. So in your life, you need bright lines. What are things you allow yourself to do and don't allow yourself to do? And if you know, hey, this is what I'm allowed to eat through the day, that's it. Or even these are the times that I'm allowed to eat. I have very strict timelines around when I eat. So I eat my first meal usually around 8:30, 9 o'clock, and I eat my last meal, brace yourselves, I eat my last meal around 1:30 p.m. And so I have a nice 17 to 18 hour window where I'm not eating.
Rule number 9, look internally.
The world that we're all living in is our own construction, and I think that's the thing that people are missing. We have literally created this world, and if this world is delusion, if this world is destruction, if this world is filled with more bad than it is good, then that is a process of our thinking. That is a revelation of how our minds work. It is a revelation of what we have built internally. So as Leo Tolstoy said, everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing themselves. If we're actually going to make change in the world, if those things that you have in your mind, the vision of what you want to bring to the world, all of the ills that you want to correct, if you're actually going to correct them, you have to look inward and begin asking, how is this your responsibility? What are the things in your thinking that have helped manifest this world, that have manifested the problems in your own life, and that will, my friends, I promise you, manifest the solutions? And as Stephen Hawking pointed out, the greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance, it's the illusion of knowledge. We think we know something that we don't. We think we have the answers. We think within us already right now are the fundamental building blocks that we're going to need in order to build something new. But the truth is, the only thing that we already have is the willingness to look, the willingness to change, to leverage the things that we have, but we have to build something entirely new. We have to understand that we don't yet know enough, that we are not adequate, that we have to look at ourselves and be willing to stare nakedly at our inadequacies and to adjust them, to fix them, to not hide behind ego, to not pretend, or worse, believe that we're already who we need to be. Because the only promise I can make you is you're not yet the person you need to be to execute, to create the change that you want to make. But I can also promise you that you can become that. That if you're willing to do the hard work of looking internally and building something new, if you're willing to tear yourself down, if you're willing to brick by brick disassemble that thing that has been built by accident inside of you and move forward with a new level of intention and build something, an entirely new structure, with your eyes open, with embracing and accepting a lack of knowledge but never ignorance, of not holding on to old ideas, but to ask of everything that you choose to believe, does this move me towards my goals or not? And if it does, then you do it. If it does, you believe it even more. But if it doesn't, right then, right there, you drop it. Then you make room for the new. Then you can build what you want to build. Then we'll have the change that we want.
And rule number 10, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is build your inadequacies.
As Gloria Steinem says, the truth will set you free, but first, it will piss you off. The reality is, if you want to achieve something great in your life, you've got to be willing to accept who you really are right now. You've got to know exactly what you're good at and what you're not. And the reason that the truth is going to piss you off is it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt to acknowledge that you're not yet who you want to be. It's going to hurt to know that you're not yet capable of the things that you want to be capable of. And it's really going to hurt to know that the things that people say behind your back, the things that they say to hurt you, that they're actually true, that they're right. They have a point. You aren't good at that thing. You aren't as good as you could be. You did embarrass yourself. You have fallen down. All of those things are almost certainly true. But when you can look at those things, when you can stare nakedly at your inadequacies, when you can really stop and not protect yourself with ego, but protect yourself by knowing that you're going to learn from where you failed. You're going to learn from the places you've fallen down. You're going to learn your inadequacies so that you can build something new, so that you can move from that place into a place of purpose, into a place of skill set where you can dominate the field because you've built those skills. But if you don't first acknowledge that you need to build them, you can never begin the process in earnest. And as Michio Kaku says, all great ideas come from a picture. You've got to know what you want. You've got to know what that thing is that you're building towards. You've got to know exactly who you're trying to become. And once you have that crystal clear vision of who you want to be, it is far easier to acknowledge who you really are. So you've got to start with that picture. You've got to accept the reality, pain and all, that you've got to have that picture. You've got to know where you're going. You've got to know what the skills are that you need to build in order to get there. And once you do that, once you have that picture, and that picture is your obsession, it's the thing that you think about, you dream about, you put it up on your wall, you tattoo it in your mind, you know exactly who you're trying to become. If you do that, if you're honest with yourself about where you are, and you know exactly where you want to go, you can go anywhere. As Gandhi said, strength does not come from physical capacity. It comes from an indomitable will. We're talking about a man that took on an empire. And he did it not by his physical prowess, but instead by not being willing to be bowed or broken. And at the end of the day, that is something each one of us controls. That is something that each one of us can build into ourselves. We decide whether or not we can be broken. We decide how far we're willing to go. And at the end of the day, how far you're willing to go, how indomitable your will really is, comes down to one simple thing. Do you believe in what you're fighting for? Are the hard times something that you're willing to push through, to persevere, to get to the other side because you believe to the core of your being in what you're fighting for? And that is something we all have to define for ourselves. That is something we all have to build into the very core of our being. But most people just stumble through life. They daydream through life. They don't have a plan. They don't have something specific that they're aiming at. And because of that, when they hit an obstacle, because of that, when they hit something that pushes back against them, when they hit an equally obstinate force, they break, they bow, they crumble. Because they don't have that thing that they're willing to fight for. They don't have that burning ember inside of them that is dictating everything that they do. And because of that, they're never going to be able to get on the other side of that obstacle. Because of that, life is going to stop them. Because of that, every time that they try to create momentum in their life, something stops them. But it's not the thing on the outside that stops them. It's the lack of something on the inside. And as Winston Churchill said, if you're going through hell, keep going. But the only way that you're going to be able to persevere through that, the only reason that you're going to have that thing inside of you that demands that you keep going is if you believe in that thing. If you've built something up in your life that you'd be willing to die for and you live for it, when you construct that at the center of your soul, then you're going to have the tenacity to push through. Then you will see that you were not defined by your physical prowess. At that moment, you will understand what Gandhi was trying to say, that each and every one of us will be made by what we come to stand for. Each and every one of us will be constructed of our will. The things that we're able to do will be defined by that. So when you take the time to build something, build the strength of conviction. That is what will see you through hell.
For me, I grew up in a morbidly obese family. My uncle essentially ate himself to death when I was 12 years old, and it was scary and sad. My mom is morbidly obese, has been my entire life. My sister's morbidly obese, has been almost her entire life. My dad at one point was morbidly obese and then lost weight, but it was like, that's just where my family lived.
Yeah.
And so I was like, they're going to die far sooner than they need to. And there's this great Mother Teresa quote, "Nobody will act for the many, but people will act for the one." This may be the biggest problem we face as a society. People don't remember that skills have utility. They let you do something. You don't learn to build a house to impress your parents. You learn to build a house so people can live in the house you build. And once people understand that, like, holy, you're building this house so somebody can live in it, build a home in it, have a family, be sheltered from storms, like, fuck, it's a real thing, man. And so all of that effort and energy you went into, I have the chills right now, is so you can create that moment for yourself, for other people. It is something so much more than going to architecture school, which maybe you went to because your parents wanted that and they were architects. And so you do that thing for that and you forget that the whole reason you became an architect was to build houses. And so once people realize, oh, I'm putting all of this time and energy to build these things because they let me do something. What do I want to do? What do I want to give? What do I want to create? When you look at skills from that perspective, it is being a superhero. It is being a superhero. You're going to collect these abilities. These abilities actually let you do something.
Now, I'm going to tell you a story, and this story pisses people off. And it goes like this. My wife, who happens to be British, big it up for England, let's say that she is with her mom, and she's in the bedroom that she grew up in. She's all safe and sound, the door's locked, the alarm is on, her mom's in the next room making sure that she's safe. But right then, a meteorite comes screaming through the atmosphere, crashes into her bedroom, and kills her. Whose fault is that? I know some other f***ers have listened to my content. I will tell you that right now. Now, if people don't know me, everybody goes to, it's dumb luck, divine providence, it's nobody's fault, how could you blame yourself? Well, let me tell you how I could blame myself. And when you hear the reality of this and you realize that I am in no way, shape, or form being hyperbolic, it actually is my fault. Here's why. I know right now there is an organization that track what are called near-Earth objects. In fact, I'm on the board of the X Prize. One of the prizes that they're trying to raise money for is for this problem, to track all these known objects and to find some way, lasers, planted nuclear explosions, something, to make sure that if something is ever on a collision course for Earth, that we can stop it. Literally, 4 weekends ago, I had a chance to vote for this, to say this should be a prize, and I didn't. So now, not only have I never sent a dime of my money to help, I've never sent an email with encouraging words, I've never called them up to tell them what I think they should do, now I literally voted against them. So, if a meteorite happens to kill my wife, I don't have anyone to blame but myself. That's so apparently true. Now, I think it's the right decision. I think that putting the time and energy into something that has such a vanishingly slim possibility of actually happening makes no sense. You have to know where to put your energies. All of us have a finite amount of energy. So you at some point have to triage and decide what are the things that I'm going to attack. I'm far more worried about my wife getting into a car. The likelihood of her dying is almost certainly going to be, at this point, something to do with heart disease or something to do with an aneurysm, things like that. It most certainly isn't going to be a meteorite crashing through the roof and killing her, but if it did, I wouldn't waste time blaming anyone else. Now the key here, I wouldn't beat myself up over it. I would be crestfallen. My wife is my everything. It would be a loss so devastating I don't even want to comprehend it. But I just wouldn't waste time blaming anyone else. Because the reality is, and let this come home, your life is the exact reflection of the choices you have made. Love your life? Great, you've made awesome choices. Hate your life? I'm sorry, you've made bad choices. But the good news is, you're in control.
What made it work? Like, what did you do that was crazy that other people didn't do?
Our mantra was, you can tell the world to eat less and exercise more, and it will work for every single person ever that's ever done it. But the reality is, the vast majority of the world will not do that. And we already know that, right? So people have been saying that for like 60, 70 years. And so we're moving in the wrong direction. So our thing was, don't change behavior, leverage it. So we already know people will eat things they want to eat.
You can't stop people from eating a chocolate chip cookie. So the question was, could you make a chocolate chip cookie that was actually good for them? So that metabolically, it was actually advantageous to eat that cookie. Could we bust our asses that hard to make that thing? And so it wasn't easy, but now we had a mission. We wanted to end metabolic disease. Now, when you have that clarity, I know people are going to eat things based on taste purely. So we know we have to address that, which is why we made snack foods instead of like, coming out with broccoli and,
You made chips.
steamed.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We made chips. And so, but if you called Quest and said, hey, I want to get in shape, what should I eat? Our answer was boiled chicken breast and steamed broccoli.
You jumped into this startup situation because I'm not getting from you that business was a driving force for you as a kid. It was
Not
about
at all.
art and expression.
Yes, 1000%. I am not a born entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Not in the slightest. And part of the reason that my philosophies are what they are is because I have lived them. So when I talk about having a negative voice, it's because I have one and it is aggressive. When I talk about anxiety, it's because I had anxiety. When I talk about being able to become an entrepreneur, it's because I had to. So I didn't have the instincts. In fact, from an instinct perspective, I didn't have any. And I had to learn all of that. Now I would say I do have good business instincts because I've trained them over time, but I certainly didn't have them in the beginning. And in the beginning of my business career, and this is real, and I really want people to feel what I feel when I say this. The only contributions that I would make for probably the first 2 years of being in business, the only contributions I would make to a conference call were to say goodbye. And I remember looking forward to that because I was finally going to get to say something. But because at least I knew enough to keep my mouth shut when I didn't know and I didn't understand, and I didn't want to look stupid. So I would just be quiet. I would listen and learn. And I'm very grateful to the guys that gave me that opportunity. They would let me on the call. So I was often in rooms that I probably would never have been allowed to be in if I'd been in a traditional company. But because it was a startup, they just kept letting me listen in on phone calls and stuff. So that ended up being really, really extraordinary for me. But yeah, I had to learn to be an entrepreneur.
Here's the hard truth about getting great. It takes time and dedication. It takes a willingness to accept that you're not yet good enough. It takes the ability to stare at the places that you know that you're weak, to really look at those things and not let it affect your sense of self-esteem and not let it affect your sense of self-worth so that you can still get the momentum going. But you have to understand that in the beginning, we're all terrible. And as Henri Cartier-Bresson said, your first 10,000 photographs are your worst. And so the thing that really makes great art are the people that continue to push and the people that continue to work and face how inadequate they are and really understand that at the end of the day, greatness is a craft. Greatness is a process. Greatness is a habit. Greatness is the little things that you do every day over time, going out every day unafraid of whether or not this is one of the 10,000 terrible things that you're going to do. It's being unafraid to make those mistakes. It's being unafraid that you're not yet great. And as Marianne Radmacher said, courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes courage is the quiet voice at the end of the day saying, I will try again tomorrow. And that's it. If you want to be great, that's what you have to do. You've got to get up again tomorrow. You've got to be willing to face another day. You've got to be willing to accept that you've got to get through the bad ideas before you can get to the good. You've got to understand that you have to start as an apprentice. You have to start as a person going and getting tea, and you have to accept that that's the job that you should be playing, that you should be working for somebody else. You should be looking up to somebody else and seeing what they can teach you, because what you know is that you're there to learn. What you know is that you're there to get through the 10,000 bad photographs that you need to get through to ultimately achieve greatness. And if you make the catastrophic error that so many make, to try to tell the world that you're extraordinary today, to try to get the world to follow you and look up to you and think that you're something today. Because the people that really win are the ones that invest today, the ones that listen today, the ones that spend every ounce of their energy amassing mastery, getting better every day, working their asses off to improve their skill set, to relentlessly look at the things that they're not doing well, to understand that they have to break themselves down and get rid of all of their ego before they can really find greatness. those are the people that we remember. So if you want to be remembered, if you want to achieve real greatness, you just need to have the courage to show up every day and take another swing, take another photo, try another task, do something that scares you, and do those little things over and over and over until you win. As Oprah Winfrey said, what you dwell on is what you become. Once you understand that humans are the ultimate adaptation machine and you understand that the brain actually builds faster and better connections between the things that you think on, you will begin to understand that it is incredibly important to be thoughtful about what you think about. It's incredibly important to pick a direction that you want to grow in, to decide who you want to become, and then make that the center of your focus, your thoughts, your time, your energy. And if you look inward or if you look outward and you don't like what you see, remember what Jim Rohn said. If you don't like how things are, change it. You're not a tree. And that's the beauty. That's the beautiful thing about being a human. We are so plastic and we can change so dramatically. We are so good at adapting that we forget that's literally what we do. But if you can take control of that process, if you can grab a hold of it and make it your own, if you can make it your daily obsession to make the most of your potential, to pick a very specific direction, to pick an end goal, an end state, an end identity, and work your way backwards, find out the steps that you're going to need to take to get there, to execute, and have the willingness to put in the work, to have the willingness to be both the sculptor and the clay, to understand that the suffering that comes with that, of changing yourself, of making yourself into something great, is a suffering well worth it. It's a suffering that you should embrace. It's a suffering that you should run towards, because in that suffering you can become anything you want. So start to dwell on that. Dwell on a vision of you being great. Dwell on a vision of you accomplishing your goals. Dwell on a vision of you having done this amazing thing that you want to do. Dwell on an image of you being willing to sweat and bend yourself in half and break if need to and bleed when necessary to become the vision of yourself you always knew you could become. Dwell on that and nothing can stop you.
Here's one of my favorite things about neuroscience. This literally changed my life. This affected my marriage. And when I give people the answer, Jay, they're going to think this is so dumb. But I'm talking to the 6 of you out there right now who are actually going to do this.
That are watching.
It will change their life, dude. You ready?
I'm ready.
When you take on a facial expression, you will feel the emotion. No matter what. Whether you want to or not, you will. And when I realized that the brain and the body are in a feedback loop, meaning that the brain gets as much information, so the vagus nerve, I think 82% of the signals running on the vagus nerve, which is the biggest nerve in your body, 82% is your body speaking to your brain. Not your brain telling your body to do something, your body telling your brain what's up, how to feel, sending signals that end up influencing massive amounts of both conscious and subconscious behavior. So it is truly a loop. So I don't get angry easily. And this actually used to really wind my wife up. But when I did get angry, I would stay angry. So it'd be like nothing. Boom, now I'm pissed. And now I'm gonna be pissed for the next 8 hours or a day or 2 days. Or God, there were times I'd be mad for like 3 days.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, it's funny, I've never once come out of one of those periods and thought, you know what, I'm glad I was mad that long. That was a great use of a Saturday with my wife. This is really just a smart way of living. Every time I came out and thought this was moronic, I don't know what you're doing, you're wasting your time. So I had read this study that said if you hold a pencil in your mouth and then have somebody, which sort of forces you into almost a smile, and then have people rate their levels of happiness, they'll rate it higher. And I thought that can't be true. And so the study goes on to talk about getting people to laugh out loud and all this stuff. And I thought, okay, I'm going to try it. So I would force myself to laugh out loud and it would change my mood. Now I felt stupid doing it for sure. But about like 6 seconds in, it's so dumb and so ridiculous. And now you're getting that feedback loop that it actually becomes real and your mood lightens. And so I wrote this letter to myself and I gave it to my wife to read to me if ever I was in a bad mood. And she only had to read it to me once. And it worked so profoundly that I realized I don't need somebody to read the letter, because the notion of, and the letter was basically, because whenever you're in a fight with somebody and they try to soothe you, you reject that because you think, well, they're just doing that because they've done something to wrong me. I have a legitimate reason to be upset. They have an incentive, a perverse incentive, to see me forgive it. So I'm not going to forgive it. This is real. And some deep recess of your brain, you feel it needs to be punished. And so in that mode, you won't believe what they say because they have motive. So I had to read this letter and it was like, hey, me, it's me. You know I have no motive in this. I want nothing other than, when you're looking back on this, for you to feel like you made the right decision. And so what I want you to do right now is laugh out loud. That's it. Just take 10 seconds. Laugh out loud. And at the end of that, you know it's going to change your brain chemistry. And I remember citing the study and I was like, you know it'll work, so just do it. And so she read it to me. I laughed out loud. It felt ridiculous. I didn't want to do it, by the way. I did not want to laugh out loud. But the code that I live by is, man, you always do that which moves you towards your goals. I want to have an amazing marriage, so I did it. I laughed out loud, and it changed my mood on a dime. And I was like, I can't believe this is real.
There really are only two macro level motivators that we have in life, and that's pleasure and pain. And so what I want people to understand is, okay, so if nature only gave you two things to motivate you, pleasure and pain, why would you eliminate half of them? And so most people think that life is about avoiding the pain. I'm here to tell you right now, in a very controlled fashion, it is about really experiencing the pain, learning from it. So Ray Dalio, the most successful hedge fund manager of all time, has a perfect math equation. Pain plus reflection equals progress. If you don't feel the pain, you never reflect on it. So my thing is, I spend 80% of my time focused on the beautiful things in my life, the things I'm grateful for, the beautiful things that I want to bring into existence, all of it. 20% of the time, though, I'm in the darkness, man. I'm in that Tim Grover, relentless, I'm going to make this happen if I have to break myself. And I'm not afraid to lean into that because I know how powerful it is. Now, if you really want to put numbers how powerful this is, they did a study and they wanted to find out what happens, how can we get people to endure more pain? And the punchline is hilarious. So they would take people and they would submerge their arm in a bucket of ice and they would just hold it there as long as you can. Now, at first it's just cold, but after a while it really starts to hurt. And so people would end up yanking their arms out. They found that people could hold their arm in the bucket 35% longer if you let them display anger. So put it in, they get to that point where they're about to pull it out and you tell them, yell, cuss, do whatever you need to, and they'd be able to do it. The expression of intensity, even what I'm doing right now, I can feel myself ready, right? I'm ready to strike, my muscles are tense, I've got a different posture, I bring my chin down, there's intensity in my eyes. Like, dude, I'm now feeling that because I'm embodying it, right? So it makes me really feel that. And so I actually started to tell the story earlier. I hate the gym. But what I would do to make myself work out is my wife would be on the opposite side of the gym and I would stare at her and I would imagine her being attacked. And I would imagine her being attacked by people bigger than me and that the only way that I could fight them off was to get stronger. There was nothing beautiful in it. I was not worried about aesthetics. I was worried about saving my wife. And by stepping into that dark place, and because people are like, what are you doing? But dude, I needed that motivation to push past what I want, to push past pain, boredom, all of it, and just to really get into it and get a result. But I find that people shy away from that. Look, to me, it's an 80-20 split. If you're spending more than 20% of your time there, it will be corrosive. It will start to erode your sense of self because you're going to feel badly, right? Because I would be saying to myself, you're weak, come on, like you've got to get stronger. If you spend 80% of your time doing that, that sucks. I don't want to live like that. But not being able to dip into both, you'll just never hit the level of extraordinary. You may be fine. You may even be good.
Audacity is nothing. Don't worry about being audacious. The reason people fear being audacious is they don't want to be me 10 years from now when this all fails, right? They're thinking, oh man, what if this doesn't work? This guy's going to look like an asshole. And it's like, yeah, maybe other people will think that I'm a total dumbass. It doesn't matter. And why doesn't it matter? Because of technique. Because if I know how to build a house, I can build a house. So my thing is, I'm not trying to posture or be cool. I'm telling you, I have a set of skills. That set of skills lets me do things. I'm just interested in doing those things. So whether or not I hit my timelines does not matter. I'm in the skill acquisition game. Skills let you do things. I'm in the game of doing the things that my skills allow me to do. So I want to impact people's lives. Maybe I'm not able to pull it off at a film level. I'll find another way. Or maybe it takes me a lot longer to pull it off. Okay, fine. As long as I love what I'm doing, even when I'm failing, there's nothing to lose.
I used to post a lot about what time I was waking up. I'd show myself in the gym sometimes at like 2 a.m. And so people started setting an alarm. And I'm like, whoa. Like, that's not what this is. Like, I sleep as much as I need to. I prioritize sleep. So I stopped doing that because I didn't want people to lose sight of what I'm really saying, which is that fulfillment is the punchline. So if we can just literally skip to the end of like the whole thing that we're going to talk about, like, all of life, the success that people are chasing, they think they want money and fame and all of that. And those things can be very valuable in a way. But what I want people to hear in my message about like working hard and discipline and all of that is the only reason that I put as much time and energy into it is because I love it. So me trying this method in something I don't love, I've lived that. I know where that ends, and it ends with me quitting. And you know, that's something that I'm sure we'll get into later, but it was like, I did that. The first 6.5 years of my journey as an entrepreneur were about the typical grinded out stuff. And look, man, it was an important phase of my life, but it ended up really chipping away at my soul. And I flirted with depression just enough in my life to know how dangerous it is. And dangerous because it will literally lead to somebody killing themselves. Or just dangerous in that, yeah, sure, you live a normal lifespan, but you hate every minute of it. And so just really understanding how you get out from under that, and like lesson number 1, love what you do.
My wife and I had tried to start our first business. Well, we did start our first business, and it made money, but it made very little money. It was a photography business. And that gave me that entrepreneurial drive. Like, I wanted to do it. I had a little tinge of it when I was selling for prepaid legal, and then really felt it when I was doing the photography. But I just looked at the dollars and I'm like, this never goes anywhere. I can never make enough money. I didn't have the words to explain it, but it was because I was time for money. And you can't break the wealth equation if you're dealing in time for money. So I was like, all right, I want something more, but I don't know what that more is. And then two of the people that came through and saw me speaking about filmmaking were these 2 entrepreneurs. And they were the 2 things I'd always promised myself as a kid that I would have, is that one day I would have 6-pack abs and one day I would be rich. Those were my 2 promises. Yeah. And that really guided my life in like a very sincere and intense way for a long time. And they come across my path. Not only are they wildly successful in business, but they're yoked. And I was like, whoa. So these guys are like, yo, we're gonna work together someday. And people would tell me that all the time. And I was like, yeah. And not really believed it. And they called and said, look, we're starting this new company, and why don't you come be a copywriter? We settle for employees, but we're always looking for partners. And you can have any role in this company that you want. You just have to become the right person for that role. And
that's really their pitch.
Yeah. And I saw him make that pitch to
everybody,
dozens of people.
Wow.
Dozens. And nobody did anything with it. And I was like, what the do people not see like what they're offering? And everyone was telling me, they're full of shit, dude. Like, can you not see? Like, these guys are just trying to take advantage of you. And I thought, even if they are, like, what do I have to lose exactly? Like, as long as my payroll checks are clearing and they're not doing anything unethical, I don't quite understand the risk. So everyone was like freaking out, telling me that I shouldn't do it. And I was just like, oh, wow, this seems too, like, it's too self-evident to me that I could always go back to teaching and that I might as well try this. And if it sucks, then I'll go back.
What's this fascination you have with the Matrix movie?
I am fresh out of film school, about a year out of film school. So The Matrix came out in 99, I graduated in 98. So I'm hopelessly lost at this point. And I go to a comic convention, love comic books, and I come around the corner at this divey little comic convention. Like, if you're thinking San Diego Comic-Con, this was not that. This was like a divey little thing. And I come around the corner and there is Carrie-Anne Moss, Keanu Reeves, Joe Pantoliano, Joe Silver, the producer, like just this whole panel of people. I'm like, what? And so this is like, I mean, film is the center of my life at this point. Yeah. I'm like, I can't believe these people are here. I had no idea. Yeah. And they're like, hey, we're handing out tickets to the premiere tonight. You can see it on the back lot of Warner Brothers.
No way.
And I was like, oh my God, it's incredible. So I go, and I'm waiting in line, and as I'm waiting in line, literally just like in the back alley of Warner Brothers, the doors burst open, people come out screaming, and I was like, what is going on? And so I plug my ears because I don't want to hear if they're gonna give spoilers, and they all go off, but I could tell.
Something special.
Yeah, they were into this thing. Go in, sit down, we're watching it, and you know that moment where Agent Smith comes up to the cops, very beginning in the movie, and he said, I told you to wait until we got here. And he said, oh, we can handle one little girl. "No, officer, your men are already dead." And they cut up to, she jumps up, and in that moment, the entire audience all at once screams, "Ah!" Like, they just go nuts. And I was like, that has never happened to me before, ever in a movie. There was just something so captivating. And then ultimately, The Matrix is the perfect metaphor for the human experience. It is about a guy who, from the day he shows up, has the same abilities as the day at the end. But once he learns to believe in himself, then he can actually do more. Even though he had the same potential, he's able to do more at the end. And I was like, that's life. Like, you've got this potential, but if you don't believe in yourself, you're never going to put in the work to actuate it.
I'm not afraid to be audacious because I know that you're never going to exceed what you're aiming at. So your hope is to hit some percentage of what you're aiming at. So I might as well dream massive. And one, it excites me. And then two, I'm not afraid of the failure. So once you have that, like, oh, it's exciting for me to dream big, and I'm hyper conscious of, you break it down in small pieces. Like, I'm not worried about building theme parks and all that stuff right now. What I'm doing right now today is make a good comic, put out a good interview show. That's it. That's what my life consists of. Stay in business, be profitable. Like, those are the things that I think about. So I keep my goals, my immediate term goals, very manageable, but I make sure that they're feeding naturally into the grand vision. But I don't get scared or lost and thinking, oh my God, I have to do all that. Nope. Right now, today, I need to read a script. I need to make sure it's okay. I need to authorize it to be drawn. That's it. That's today. And as long as you're able to focus on that and get good at that, and then just always push yourself to make your skill set better and better and better, as long as it's leading towards that thing and you have clarity on where you're trying to go so that you make sure the skills you're acquiring will actually lead you there, you'll be fine.
You've said it before that when you started out, there was a time when it was just about money. It was just about getting rich.
That's it. I used to repeat that over and over and over.
What? I just want to get rich?
Yeah, I just want to get rich. That's what this is. I kept saying to my wife, I'm going to make you rich. I'm going to make you rich. I'm going to make you rich. Like, it was the core of my identity. From the time I was probably preteen, because this was tied to my desire to be a filmmaker, I knew, like, inside I identify as an artist far more than I do as an entrepreneur. And I was looking at, okay, I love poetry and I love filmmaking. Well, there's no money to be made in poetry, but I could become truly wealthy in filmmaking. So that for me was a creative endeavor that I could also generate tremendous wealth. And so that put me on a path, which of course was part of the reason that I went into being an entrepreneur in the first place. Was I needed to control the art, I needed to control the resources. So I had to, like, learn business. And so going down that path and really realizing what it took to build a business and all of that, which is a whole universe unto itself, to have the will to push through all of that difficulty, it was, I'm going to get rich, I'm going to get rich, I'm going to get rich. And then just realize that maybe for Scrooge McDuck, who wants to swim in his money, that would be like a self-sustaining motivation. But somebody even like a Warren Buffett, at the end of the day, money means something to him. And it's the thing that it means that drives him. It isn't the money in and of itself. And the problem was I was literally chasing money in and of itself.
If you want to believe in yourself and have a sense of self-worth, you have to earn that. And I wish it's something that somebody can give you, but they can't. But you can, doing really simple stuff. You say you're going to do something, do it.
Yes.
So my thing is, I said I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to go to the gym. Whether I like it or not, I know that it has advantages in terms of cognitive optimization, in terms of longevity, all of that. So I'm going.
Now, because I'm a learner, because that's my identity, and because I really believe whatever skill set you have today, it's already taken you as far as it's going to take you. So unless this is where you want to be for the rest of your life, you've got to be open to change. You've got a hunger for it. So I don't fear change. I actually enjoy change because change has been the thing that's allowed me to improve my life consistently. And so I'm always looking for ways in which I'm wrong because I don't value myself for being right. And once people understand that for me, it wasn't, in the beginning, I was just telling myself to do that. It wasn't at a limbic level. Now I've been telling myself to value myself only for my willingness to admit when I'm wrong and to learn. That at a limbic level, it's true. So when somebody tells me I'm wrong, I have this rush of like, oh my God, this is amazing. Because if they're right and I really am wrong and they're making me aware of this, I'm going to get more powerful. So, and that goes back to my real belief in skills having utility. So it's like the ego doesn't have utility. Yeah, maybe some, but it's not, when misplaced and built around the wrong things, can be super dangerous.
When people say like, oh, I don't want to intern, or I want to make sure I'm getting paid when I'm worth, all that stuff, it's like, if you're focused in the beginning of your career with monetizing your current skill set, you will never get where you want to go because money only spends once unless you're really good at investing, which most young people are not. whereas skills monetize again and again and again and again.
Great point. That's so powerful. Can you say that one more time?
Yeah, money only monetizes once, or you can only spend it once, but your skills can be monetized over and over and over.
Growing up, I didn't show any early signs of promise. A little embarrassing to put these photos up. I wish these photos were atypical, but in reality, that is what I look like pretty much all the time. I always had some sort of clown hat on. I actually wore my pajamas out and about on the streets. That's San Francisco. Yeah, that was really where I started. And wanting to do something with my life, I had this unending ease that I could do more, I could be more. I just didn't know how, and I felt trapped, but I didn't know what I was trapped by. And my own mother, who's always been my biggest cheerleader, who all but kicked me out of the house when I was panicking and didn't want to leave the state for college, was actually the only person in my graduating class to leave the state. Wasn't something that people from Tacoma, Washington did. You stayed, you went to a state school. My mom still lives less than 3 miles from the house that she grew up in. So this is not a place where people go off and explore. But my mom always felt like if I didn't do that, that I would have a lot of the same regrets that she had, that I wouldn't see the world, that I wouldn't discover myself, and that one day I would look back and say, what if I had only tried? Now, what she didn't tell me at the time, but she has since confessed, is that she just assumed I was going to fail. Now, my mom is hilarious. She's not Jewish, but you would think she is, because her whole life, since kicking me out of the nest, she's been desperately trying to claw me back. And so one day I finally asked, I said, what is with that? Like, literally, you forced me to leave and go to college, so why have you worked so hard to get me back? And that's when she said, with nothing but love in her heart, I just always thought you would fail. And that was a gift. It was really a gift, because at that moment I realized that the things that I've accomplished in my life had nothing to do with being given something at birth. Now, I felt this unease that I was talking about, that I could do more, but I was stuck and I didn't know what I was trapped in. In 1999, a movie came out called The Matrix. That movie ended up giving me the intellectual framework to think about what was happening in my life, because there was something limiting me. There was something that made me feel adrift. And this gave me the vernacular to think about what it was. And in the movie, they talk about taking the red pill. The red pill, its only promise is the truth. That's it. It's not saying that it's going to make things better. It's simply going to reveal the way that the world really is. And that for me was incredibly intoxicating. And I took the red pill intellectually, and what I began to realize is that the mind is the matrix in and of itself. Now, there's people that'll debate whether we actually live inside the matrix, whether we're actually in a simulation, and it's a fun conversation, but I honestly don't care about the answer, because I can tell you right now, today, in this moment, I promise you, the matrix has you. If you guys know David Foster Wallace's concept of this is water, to a fish, water is so ubiquitous it ceases to exist. Now, we all have that same thing, and it's playing on us, and it's keeping us from becoming who we want to become. And that thing is our mindset. It's our belief system. It is so ever present. It is so ingrained into the fabric of who you are and the way that you process data, you don't even notice it. You don't even know that it's real. And this is the thing that impacts your life. It is your inability to see that your mindset controls everything, that it is water in and of itself. Now, when I heard this from Shakespeare, I realized that once you become aware of the water, you can change everything. That you can go from a scared, lost kid in Tacoma to whomever you want to be. And in understanding that, things began to become possible.
What makes you happy?
The easy answer and the most truthful answer is time with my wife. The other answer to what makes me happy, there's really two things. So time with my wife, and then the pursuit, which I'll put in all caps, right?
Yep.
So the pursuit of whatever, the pursuit of getting better, the pursuit of impacting the world, the pursuit of building something big that matters. The pursuit, maybe I never get it. I don't care about that. I care about the pursuit. I care about whether sincerely I'm actually trying to make it happen. Not bullshit.
Yeah.
Not just like empty dreams, but like for real. I'm actually giving myself over to this. And I spent a lot of time in the inner cities. I big brothered for this one kid for 8.5 years, completely changed my life. And then having 1,400 employees, and about 1,000 of which grew up hard in the inner cities. Hard, I mean, most of them grew up in Compton. I mean, it was just some of the most extraordinary stories I've ever heard. And I realized that those people are as extraordinary as anybody. Barack Obama, Oprah Winfrey, Tony Robbins, like all those same raw materials exist in people in the inner cities that nobody believes in, nobody think will ever go anywhere. And they won't because they don't believe in themselves. And so we were talking at our most honest, like what are we really driven by? And I'm driven by that moment of awakening, which I had in my own life where I finally realized, wait, I can learn new things. So just because I'm not good today doesn't mean I can't be good tomorrow. And that filled me with so much excitement. I want to see that in other people. And I want to see what the world looks like when other people realize, wait a second, that Steve Jobs quote that the world is made by people no smarter than you is actually true. Yeah. And so if you're believing that these people are smarter than you because you did bad on your SATs, I'm just going to tell you right now, stop. So you can develop yourself. So my obsession became that humans are the ultimate adaptation machine. We are literally wired from the ground up in order to grow and improve under stress and pressure. So it's like, what's the phrase? Pressure can burst pipes, but it also creates diamonds. Yes. So it's like, you need the pressure. And yes, it can hurt, but it can also make something amazing if you're willing to put yourself in that situation. So it's a weird twist of fate that humans, in order to build the muscle, you first have to tear it.
There are many people that consider themselves a born entrepreneur. I am not one of them. I know that there were kids out there that had lemonade stands when they were like 6 months old. They couldn't hold their head up, but they could sell. That was not me. I was totally retarded when it came to stuff like that. I had a paper route, and they gave your money in two ways. One, they just gave you sort of a blanket weekly payment for delivering the paper, but then the other part of it was you were supposed to go collect that money. And I was too afraid to knock on the doors to collect the money, so I never got that part, but I felt so obligated that I said I would do it that I kept delivering the papers essentially for free. So that's where I started as an entrepreneur. My parents' biggest frustration was that I was epically lazy, and if they handed out gold medals for being lazy, I would have won, I assure you, hands down. There was a period in my life where I would spend between 2 and 3 hours in bed because it was warm in bed and it was cold out of bed. All right? That's true. I actually did an interview with Jocko Willink, if you guys know him, Extreme Ownership. His book totally blew me away. And in the middle of the interview, I confessed that. And he said, Tom, don't worry, we'll let you edit that out. And I said, Jocko, I actually don't want to edit that out because right now the narrative about what it means to be an entrepreneur is to be naturally gifted. And I call total shit on that because I'm not naturally gifted. I don't have any natural talents. And all of us are born as this lump of jelly that can't hold its own head up, that poos in its pants, and we all learn to do things. And it's that ability to specialize that makes us great. And the things that you choose to put your time and energy into, those are going to be the things that allow you to accomplish something. But all of that is a choice.
I heard a quote one time, and it so terrifies me. This, in fact, over a long enough time period, people are going to hear this quote from me so many times because seriously, man, I'm not joking. This scares me.
Wow.
And it scares me enough that it has a daily place in my life. And that is, genius is a young man's game. And when I heard that quote, I thought, whoa, the one thing that all of us touch for the briefest of moments is youth. And if you're lucky, what you'll get is a whole lot of middle age and then some old age, but you don't get a lot of youth. And so I just thought, ooh, that's really scary. And they were basing it on the number of people that win Nobel Prizes. It's almost always for work they did in their 20s and 30s, almost always. And I thought, oh, I don't like that. And so looking at why that, and the reason, I guess this is important to say, the reason that I didn't like it was I felt that my youth was really whipping by and I hadn't accomplished the things that I wanted to accomplish. So if I'm, my youth is whooshing by me, how do I make sure that I can access genius at any time? And genius shorthand for like playing at the absolute best of your game and really changing things, like really having an impact. And this is one thing I think you and I share, like I want to have impact on the world. So if I just wanted to be rich, Lisa and I would have bought an island and retired, years ago. So clearly there's something more that's motivating me, and that thing is impact and really touching lives. So it's like wanting to be able to do that. I don't want to say, well, I had this brief window in my youth and I either did or didn't make use of it. But even if I did, I don't want the rest of my life to be looking back on that. So another quote that drives me, your future should always be bigger than your past. So, all right, you've got genius is a young man's game and a personal belief of mine that you should always be looking towards doing something more than you've ever done. And so you put those two together, and I just knew I had to solve for that problem. And the only solution that I have for it is switching things up, like you said, to live at the edges. And the same book was talking about the people that do end up getting either multiple Nobel Prizes or prizes for work they did later, is it's people that would routinely change so that they would have these two overlapping areas. So like chemistry and physics, and like where those two meet, like there's new discoveries and new ways to challenge your own thinking. And so always staying fresh, always challenging my own thinking, always looking at how am I wrong? Most people go into an endeavor with the confirmation bias. In fact, you just brought that up.
Now you've had, like I have, you've had extraordinary people sitting across from me. I've been blessed to have you sit across from me today. And I'm curious if there was a common denominator between all of these people, or what have you learned that surprised you in doing the show so far?
The thing that's really surprised me is that it is so consistent.
Any moment, you can choose to believe something new about yourself. Now, the weird thing about belief is as soon as you change that belief, it becomes true. Why that is, I will never quite understand. What weird quirk of human evolution has left us in a space where simply believing it makes it true? If you think you're dumb, guess what? You're dumb. Truly. And you will act in accordance with that belief, and that should scare the shit out of you, because it scared the life out of me. And I saw myself heading down a path that I did not want to be on because I believed that I was dumb. I had a fixed mindset. I used to only apply for jobs where I knew I'd be smarter than the person interviewing me because I did not want to feel badly about myself. But you can imagine the types of jobs that I got. I once lovingly referred to myself as the king of remedial jobs. And I actually had pride in that, because what I built my sense of pride around was getting the job, was always being smart, was being right, and none of those things were moving me towards my goals. Now, if you don't know this quote, live by it. One can have no smaller or greater mastery than mastery over oneself. That's Da Vinci. Da Vinci did amazing things with his life. I wanted to do equally amazing things with mine. And if that's the game that we're playing, if I can construct my belief system, if I can choose at any moment to believe something that's more empowering than I was believing the moment before, and that will actually find its way into my actions, allow me to do things that I couldn't do the moment before, then it's like that moment in The Matrix where Neo realizes he knows Kung Fu. And that's like, as funny as that is, that's how I think about life. To me, the very fundamental purpose of life is to find out how many skills I can acquire that have utility, and then put that utility to the test in service of something greater than myself.
I used to say to myself all the time, you're gonna get rich or you're gonna die trying. And so, starting as a copywriter, I started busting my ass. Step number one, I convinced my wife, we're going to, because there were two other partners that hired me, I'm gonna pick an apartment that's no more than 5 minutes from either of them. That way, if they call me at 2 in the morning, I'll be there in 5 minutes, and they're gonna know no one else in their company is as serious as me. And I'm gonna claw my way up this company, and I'm gonna get whatever job I become the right person for, and I'm gonna work my way up. And by the time we ended up selling that company, I had clawed my way through sweat equity into owning 10% of the company and being the chief marketing officer, from starting as the copywriter. The person that everybody asked, who's the kid in the server room, was the only person that didn't have a window. They literally put me in the room with all the computer servers. But starting from there, I knew I could wow people because I was willing to grind it out. And that is one of the most valuable things that anybody can do.
You talk a little bit about seeking power.
Yeah.
And it confused me when I first heard it. I'm not sure I even liked how you said it at first until I understood it. And so can you talk to everybody about seeking power and what that means?
Yeah, this is another one of those things that internally for me, it's such a beautiful concept that I was so surprised the first time I said it out loud and somebody was like, oh, that's gross. And I was like, okay, I need to explain this then.
Yes.
So to me, power is the ability to close your eyes, imagine a world, a beautiful world, the world that you want to exist,
open your eyes, and then be able to actually make that world come true. And so when I say I'm seeking power, I'm saying I'm seeking the skills that will allow me to make the world a better place. It will, whether that's to be able to connect with people and build a team and get other people excited, whether that's to be able to build a business that generates enough funds to improve the lives of the employees and the people that we touch with great products. You know, whatever that is, like to be willing and excited by the thought of going out and getting those skills, because those skills really are powerful. And to me, it's like people misunderstand power the way they misunderstand money.
This is me 60 pounds ago. And I knew if I was going to accomplish anything in my life, I was going to have to get control of my mind. Now, ironically, there's two ways to get control of your mind. Way number one is directly going to the mind, which can be very scary, can be very daunting, very ethereal. It's ephemeral, it's hard to grab onto, it's hard to touch. But way number two is through the body. And so I decided that my kung fu was going to be to get very good at developing my body. And in that process, I was going to learn about nutrition, which would allow me to help my mom and my sister. In that process, I was going to earn credibility with myself. And earning credibility with yourself is so important. Do it in micro ways. For me, just showing up to the gym every day was a micro victory. I said I was going to do it, and I did it. Now, you have to understand, I hate working out. So for all of you crazy people that get an endorphin rush from running, I hate you all. Running for me is like being stuffed into a meat grinder. There is absolutely nothing pleasurable about it whatsoever. So whatever neurological thing you guys get that you've been blessed with, I have not been blessed with that. So for me, showing up in the gym sucks. Eating a bowl of ice cream is awesome. And so getting to a better place for me was a totally different journey. Thank you. And what that was just showing up every day and putting in the work. It was reading about human metabolism and understanding how what I eat impacts my body. It was earning a little bit of discipline every day, knowing that, well, I did it yesterday, I can do it again today. It was not eating something that I wanted to eat. And most importantly, and if you're taking notes, write this down, it was about changing my identity. Because at the end of the day, identity and values drive behavior.
When people come to me and they're struggling with something or whatever, I always start with the same thing. There's one belief that matters, and if you're willing to take this on, every other domino falls from here. And if you don't believe this, then we're in trouble. It's very similar, which is that the human animal is designed to learn and grow, meaning you can get better at anything, which is another way of saying everything is figure-outable. You can learn this stuff. So yes, I get it. You don't know it now. I agree. You, right now today, you're incapable. You're in the moment where the radio's broken. You haven't yet opened it. You're not yet trying to figure out like what pieces need to go where. You haven't done the experimentation. So I fully accept that right now you're incapable. But if you believe that you can learn,
the questions you ask yourself will determine the course of your life. I had been asking myself, what do I need to do to get rich? And it left me really unhappy. So I changed the question. And I started asking, what would I do and love every day, even if I were failing? The second law of thermodynamics is that everything moves towards entropy. Life is chaos. It takes an inhuman amount of effort to bring order to that, to find success in the middle of that. So while I cannot promise you success, I can promise you failure. I cannot promise you happiness, but I can promise sadness. So if you know those are the guarantees and the other things are the things that you have to strive for, you better be striving in service of something that in and of itself is interesting to you.
we're surrounded. They're in front of us, behind us, to the left and right of us. They can't get away this time. When you can be surrounded, when you can be in a position where you know that you're outgunned and still convince yourself that you're going to win, to go into it believing you're going to win, then you'll understand one of the fundamental truths of being a human being. To accomplish the extraordinary, first, you must believe. You have to believe in something
even before you have any earthly right to believe in it. You have to be able to look inside of yourself and know that you're going to show up, to look inside of yourself and see something that nobody else can see, to know that you are playing to win, to know that you understand the way the mind works, and that if you can't believe it first, if you can't see a vision for yourself of being capable of something, then you're not capable of it. And that if you want to do what other people simply can't do, then you've got to start by convincing yourself that you can do it. That comes down to a belief about who you are and what you're capable of. And that belief is yours to hold. No one can give it to you. No one can take it away. That is who you are. A decision. A choice, a belief.
Walk us through your goal setting process.
Okay, so normally it starts with chasing my bliss. So if you have read Joseph Campbell, he talks a lot about this, and this is really powerful, and I think that's something people don't think a lot about. There is something in your life, and this is sort of my secret, not secret because I've talked a lot about it, but it's like the thing, I don't think people are hearing me. It's like in you right now, I promise, is something that you love to do, and most people dismiss it. And they dismiss it probably because they don't know how to monetize it. They don't think it could be a job. They don't think it can be a business. Their family and friends have told them, that that's silly or stupid or whatever. And so they never realize, they literally have a blinder to the fact that there is something in their life that's a raging interest. It may not be quite a passion, but it's like a raging interest. Mm-hmm. And so I'm always trying to start there. So the example that I always give to people of a raging interest is video games. So a lot of people like to play video games, or they like to read or whatever, right? So it's like the thing that they go and do when they're sort of contracting into themselves, they've had a rough day or whatever, or even Jesus, food, like people really retreat into food, right? And so imagine becoming a food blogger, right? It's like food is that thing that gives you comfort. It's that thing that you think you have this negative relationship with. You've got this really unstable thing where you eat and you feel guilty, whatever. Like, if you could recognize that, okay, this is something that I love, there is a way to find a healthy relationship with this, I'm going to do that, and then I want to talk about it, and I'm going to, connect with other people. And even if in the beginning you don't know how to make money at it, do it because it will make you feel alive, right? And there's that great quote, and again, wow, I'm really forgetting my quotes today, of who said it, but it was like, don't worry about what you could be great at, do the thing that makes you feel most alive, because what the world really needs is people who've come alive. And so, if you tap into that thing that makes you feel alive, that to me is the juice. So turn inward, don't dismiss it, no matter how silly or stupid it might be. What is that thing that makes you feel most alive? So that's always where I'm starting. So when you think about what we were doing at Quest, or now what we're doing with Impact Theory, those were both moments where I turned inside and said, okay, what's me following my bliss?
This is the thing when I really sit down and try to break down for people what you need to do to be successful. There's certain places I stop because there's nothing universal to give them. And the plan is one of them, right? So I'm just ridiculously psycho about people need a goal, a hyper-specific goal, and a plan. So my thing is identify the gap between where you are and where you want to be. And that gap is a gap of skill set. And now you have to go and get those skills. But most people can't identify what skills actually lie between where they are and where they want to go. They get it from the end result, but they don't know how to plan that out. Yeah. And I don't even understand, other than just sort of by intuition, how I'm doing it.
I want to tell you a story, and this story is either going to make you love me or hate me. It has that effect on people. The story goes like this. My wife is British. Some of this story is true and some is made up. I'll try to delineate. My wife is British, that really is true. Let's say that she was in London visiting her family. She's in the bedroom that she grew up in. The doors are locked. The alarm is on. Her mother is sitting quietly in the next room, protecting her from all kinds of woes. And right at that moment, a meteorite comes screaming through the atmosphere, smashes through the roof, and kills my wife. Whose fault is that? Now, I know what most people are thinking. It's nobody's fault. It's divine providence. It's luck. It's fate. It just is what it is. That's not how I live my life. And I invite you all to adopt the following belief system. It's all my fault. Now, I use the word fault because it jabs people in the ribs. It gets people's attention. It makes them angry because they think I'm victim shaming or blaming the victim, and I'm not. I'm saying I refuse to ever be a victim. And if I maintain control, then there's something that I can do about it. Now, I use that example because it seems so absurd, and yet, at the same time, I know this is true. There is a group that track what are called near-Earth objects, and they're trying to make sure that if one is ever on a collision course for Earth, that we'd be able to do something about it, whether it's a laser or a planted nuclear explosion, whatever the case may be. Now, I know they exist. I even know where they are. I've never called them to give them encouraging words. I've never sent them a dime of my money. I've never sent them ideas. I know they exist. I do nothing about it. So why on earth, if it comes around and that decision bites me in the ass and my wife is killed by a meteorite, would I blame anyone else? I could have done something and I chose not to. Now here's the great news. I think it's a wise choice. I think the odds of that happening to my wife are so slim that it would be a total waste of time. But it shows you the lengths to which I had to take my mentality in order to learn the skills that I needed to learn to get where I wanted to go. And the way that I define an entrepreneur is somebody who encounters an obstacle and gets really pissed because the thought of giving up never occurs to them. And now they know they have to go over, under, through it, around it, whatever, but they're not going to slow down and they're not going to stop.
How do you handle competing simultaneous good ideas?
Getting something over the finish line is the key. So, it gets really boring, and there's just an innate boredom to, especially when I conceptualize it as being an entrepreneur. One of the things that every now and then, just sort of tongue-in-cheek and for fun, I'll document is when we're doing something really boring or stupid. Like this morning, I should have filmed it. Lisa spent like an hour wrangling cables. And it's like, that shit is so dull, but it has to be done. Like, otherwise, you get right up to it. Like, you've got all these grand ideas, you're going to change the world, you're going to do this amazing stuff, and then cables are the thing that stop you, right? And so that's one of the things that makes Amazon so amazing is they get it, like on a tactical level, just from a, how do you improve the customer experience? Blocking and tackling, right? It's not sexy, but you've got to do it, the blocking and tackling. So it's the same thing with doing things sequentially. You'll get these great ideas, you want to do them all, and you can do them all. There's so much time in life, but you just can't do them all at the same time. So breaking them into, and if they stack, and that, like this concept that Tim Ferriss has of the lead domino, like finding that what is the, so if you've got these 5 things that you want to do, the order that you do them in can be really critical. And then I know that in saying that, I'm paralyzing people because then they're like, well, I don't know what the order is. And yes, that's one of the things you have to get good at, is really identifying what is the sequence in which things are optimally done. And the only way to do that is to stop and think through it and think, okay, what's the lead domino? If I do this, then what are the other things that fall? So take, for me, speed reading, or the way I do it, Audible, that was like the lead domino. If I can train myself to assimilate information faster, then I can get a skill faster. And if I can get a skill faster, then I can execute faster. So I actually put a lot of early energy into learning to listen to Audible books at 3x, right? So people always think that like I'm crazy. And part of me is always hoping like someone will say, show me your Audible right now. I want to see that it's actually at 3x. Because it's like I put so much energy and effort into being able to do that, and people think that, oh, well, you just have some lucky skill. It's not that. It, like anything, you just push yourself to do it. And I'm absolutely horrific at speed reading. So if I hadn't gotten into Audible, I would have really, really had to force myself to do that because it's a lead domino. So find those things that are the lead dominoes and just ask, like, what's gonna, if I do this thing, what's the one that gives me the exponential result on the other stuff?
This has been one of my favorite weeks, and it's been one of my favorite weeks for a reason that's probably very counterintuitive for everybody. It's because I've been tested. Last week I was sick. I don't know if it was the flu, food poisoning, whatever it was, but I had my ass handed to me. I was sleeping like 12, 13 hours a night, which for me is absolutely unheard of. And then this week I had 3 episodes to prepare for. We shot them in less than 48 hours. So over the course of just a couple of days, I had to jam-pack my brain full of 3 incredible human beings, Mel Robbins, Jason Silva, and Wyclef Jean. It was insane and entailed doing an absolute ton of work. But this is what I love. This is where I get to earn my reputation with myself. I talk about earning credibility with yourself all the time, and the only chance you get to do that is when things get hard. I'm never impressed with myself how I act when things are easy, and I'm very impressed with myself when things are hard. So I'm always actually looking for those moments when things are difficult, when I know that I'm willing to put in a level of work that other people just aren't willing to put in, that I'm willing to spend hour after hour after hour researching people, having 2 people on the same day that each require a day or a day and a half of research, so spending my entire weekend working on it literally until the minute I go to bed. I was listening to podcasts and interviews as I'm brushing my teeth, literally making my wife put the dogs away so that I could take every possible second, every transitional moment, everything to drink in a little bit more knowledge and then synthesize all of that stuff so that I could do an interview that nobody else is going to be able to do. And that for me is what everybody should be doing. If you want to do something great, if you want to stand out, and I want this show to stand out, if you want to be able to pull that off, you've got to work harder than anybody else. There's no substitute for that. And that is the thing that I love. That is what I love about hard work. Most people just aren't willing to do it. So if you want to separate yourself from everybody else, get better than everybody else. And when you're willing to put in that work, when you actually hunger for moments like this, where you get to show yourself, because everybody else, I don't care what they think. I want to know for myself who I am and how hard I'm willing to work. So when you get these moments, take advantage of them. When they come, when you have a hard road in front of you, hit it with enthusiasm, hit it with excitement, hit it knowing that on the other side of that, you get to feel a certain way about yourself that other people will never get to feel in their lives, because it's the way that only people who push when no one's watching get to feel about themselves. That's when you'll really be extraordinary. That's when you'll really do something. That's when you will surpass everyone around you. Because you just did the work. You look forward to the test. You wanted to be pushed. You wanted to see what you're made of. That's what it's about.
I like the juxtaposition of the high intensity fight or flight sympathetic response of being in the gym, and then the parasympathetic response of meditating. And being able to rapidly shift your state, like on a physiological level, is really important. So I go from that, I come out of the gym, I'm huffing and puffing, I sit down and I see how rapidly I can calm my heart rate, how rapidly I can calm my breath, and I listen to the sounds of nature. So if it's, raining outside, I'll listen to rain. If it's night, I'll listen to the sounds of, like a meadow at night. Which I actually find really relaxing. And I get lost in that. Now, the reason that I do that is that shifts you into what's called an alpha wave state.
Love this.
When you get into an alpha wave state, it's commonly referred to as being calm and creative. So it's not sleepy, okay? That's like getting more into theta. So you feel completely alert, but you feel calm, you feel creative. And so parts of your brain are talking that don't normally talk. So you get these like really far-flung sort of creative answers to a problem. Since the whole point of this is to get into an alpha wave state, as soon as I feel completely calm and creative, sometimes it takes 5 minutes, sometimes it takes 30 minutes. But once I feel calm and creative, I go into thinkitating, where I let my mind begin to wander onto the biggest problems that I face in my business. And in that, I'll just have these ideas and I take notes and I go back to it. So I'm still breathing, I'm still keeping my eyes closed, except when I'm taking notes. And I stay in that space, and I can sometimes elongate that for another 30 minutes. So my typical meditation's 15 to 20, and then I'll thinkitate for 10 to 40 minutes, depending on like if I'm really on a vein of something interesting. And knowing that I'm gonna be able to do that once I get into the alpha state, I actually get into the alpha state much faster, because I'm not thinking, oh, is this an idea I should take a note on? I'm just like, when am I really there?
Yes.
When I feel it click in, I'm like, okay, cool. And if I have an idea, boom, then I go for it.
Because you made it this far in a video, I want to celebrate you. Most people start and don't finish. Most people never actually follow through. Most people say they want something, but they don't ever do the work to actually get it. But you're different. You are special. Believe Nation, you made it here all the way to the end, and I love you. So as a special celebration, if you put a hashtag Believe down in the comments below on this video, I will showcase you and celebrate you somewhere on the screen in a future video, because you are awesome. If you want 10 more amazing rules from Tom Bilyeu, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
I love inspiration and motivation, but it is the neurological equivalent of candy. It's rad, it has its place, but everyone, because those just happen to be fleeting neurological states.